The Grau 5.56 is a DLC rifle that was just added into Modern Warfare as part of that 1.14 update that came with Season 2. And the nice part about how they added it to the game is that it's completely free for everyone at tier 15, regardless if you decide to go the free route or the paid route on the battle pass. So with a brand new weapon, a lot of people out there are starting to already call it overpowered, and I wanted to take a little bit of a closer look and compare this to one of the most overpowered weapons in the entire game, and that is the M4A1 assault rifle. So throughout the video, we're going to take a look at the base stats of each and how they stack up against each other, which should hopefully give us a good idea on which one is actually better. And along with that, I'm going to also provide a class setup for each. But given the fact that both of these weapons are pretty top tier, you're going to be able to find a ton of class setups that are going to work to fit your individual playstyle. So if you enjoy the content, please do me a favor hitting that like button. I am setting a goal of at least 500 likes on the video, so if you can help me reach that goal, I'd be very appreciative of that. And on top of that, if you are brand new to the channel or just haven't yet subscribed, definitely consider subscribing with notifications on if you're looking to find your way back to the channel. So the first thing we'll talk about is the overall damage profile, and they pretty much have the same damage profile. They're slightly different, but for the most part, this is a negligible difference. For the M4, it does 28 damage, 22 damage, and drops down to 28 at further ranges. With the Grau, you have pretty much the same damage profile, but instead of 22, it's 23. So I would say in the damage category, it's pretty much a tie. And obviously, since those damage profiles are pretty much the same, you're going to end up with the same shots to kill. It's normally going to be 4, 5, or 6 shots to kill, unless you land a headshot. And both of them, obviously, because they have the same damage profiles, have the same headshot damage. And that'll make it so that at the closer ranges, it requires 2 headshots to lower the time to kill. And at the further ranges, you only need to land 1, which will bring the time to kill to 3 shots, 4 shots, or 5. And honestly, one of the biggest differences is when it comes to the rate of fire. The M4 has a rate of fire of 833 rounds per minute, while the slower firing Grau has a rate of fire of 750 rounds per minute. And how that ends up translating into time to kill is if it takes the same number of shots to kill, the M4 will kill in about 2 frames faster at 60 Hz, which is the standard frame rate for consoles. In terms of the hipfire spread, they're pretty much about the same on the lower end of the rifle category. In terms of recoil, where weapons typically separate themselves significantly, they almost have the identical recoil. They kind of go up and then diagonally to the right. And with both of those recoil patterns, you're generally only going to need 1 recoil attachment to help to compensate for that recoil. But depending on your ability to handle that recoil will determine whether or not you need an additional attachment to help out or none at all. So the next area we'll take a look at is specific to their overall mobility and handling properties, because even though they're very similar because they are in the rifle category, there are some slight differences that give an advantage to each of the weapons. So when it comes to the aim down sight time, the Grau has a faster aim down sight time by 1 frame, or approximately 16 milliseconds. As far as the sprint out time and the super sprint out time, they're pretty much the same. In terms of reload speed, they're basically identical until you equip sleight of hand, and that's because the M4 with sleight of hand will bring that reload time to under 1 second, and that makes it faster than the Grau's reload time with sleight of hand by 210 milliseconds or 13 frames. In terms of the overall movement and strafe speed, I'm not sure how to actually calculate that, so I pulled these numbers directly from Exclusive Ace, which I'll leave a link down to his channel in the description, because to my knowledge, he's pretty much the only one that I've seen that actually has the movement speed and strafe speed in the form of a percent. So when using the M4, the overall movement speed comes in at 95%, while the Grau comes in at 97%, and the strafe speed for the M4 is 50%, while the Grau comes in at 53%. And obviously mobility and all that stuff is pretty important to some players over others, but generally when I use the weapons side by side and back to back, I did not feel a noticeable difference. Even though I know it exists, I did not actually feel it within the game. So the next category we'll take a look at is the overall range difference between these weapons. And I think if you're looking at the head-to-head comparison up to this point, I think you'd give a slight edge to the M4, and that's all it is, just a slight edge in the time to kill category, just because it has a faster rate of fire. Besides that, I would say they are fairly even up until this point. Since for each of the weapons we do have 3 different numbers for the number of shots to kill, that'll also give us 3 important ranges. When it comes to the M4, its first damage range is up to 26 meters, Then its second one is between 26 all the way up to 45 meters. And then the third range is pretty much everything above 45 meters, which is pretty decent. It's been nerfed a little bit since launch, but that's where it sits now. For the Grau, its first damage range is from 0 to 34 meters, then from 34 meters up to 60 meters, which is a huge, especially for any of the categories of weapon. And the last range is obviously everything above 60 meters. And I know for some people that's a lot of numbers, so I actually made a graphic to better represent what all these numbers mean and give you a better idea of which weapon is actually better and in which situations. So as you can see on screen, the M4 is going to be represented by the yellow color, while the Grau is represented by the red color. You can see from 0 meters all the way up to 26 meters, the M4 is the better bet because it kills approximately 2 frames faster. Between 26 to 34 meters, the Grau has the upper hand and it kills 3 frames faster than the M4 within that range. Then between that 34 to 45 meters, the M4 takes control again. Then between 45 meters all the way up to 60 meters, the Grau takes it back. And then finally, from 60 meters on, the M4 is a better weapon in terms of time to kill. And as you can see from the gray box in the middle of the screen, the game considers a long shot any kill beyond 38 meters. So I think we talked about a bulk of what we could talk about when it comes to these weapons. The only thing really left over is the iron sights. When it comes to the M4, I think the iron sights are fairly clean. You pretty much have a couple different options if you do have a couple of those blueprints. When it comes to the Grau, there's like 5 different options. The base one plus each of the barrels will give you a different iron sight. So which one ends up being better? I think if you take the weapons as they are with no attachments, I think the M4 ends up coming out on top. Because even in the example that I was giving with the yellow and the red bars, if you actually take into account where most of your gunfights will happen, I think the M4 ends up coming out on top, because most of your gunfights are going to be within that 26 meter range. Beyond that, it kind of gets a little bit half and half between the 26 to 45 meters. So that's kind of a toss-up. But then when you actually start factoring fully kitted weapons, I think they end up kind of being in a tie, because the M4 can make up for some of those range deficiencies. Depending on the map you're playing on, you might need more range, maybe you need more mobility. The same thing with the Grau. I think head to head, depending on the situation, with fully kitted weapons, it ends up kind of being a tie. Now we'll take a look at each of my personal class setups for each of these weapons. So for the M4, I use the monolithic suppressor, the Corvus marksman barrel, the commando foregrip, as well as the 50 round mag and the stippled grip tape. And I consider this more of my casual M4 class setup. This is the one I just use on a regular basis. If I'm looking to sweat a little bit more, play a little bit more fast pace, I usually get rid of the commando foregrip and put on the no stock attachment in its place, so I can have a little bit faster mobility and aim down sight time. Like I said earlier, the Grau has a ton of great class setups, but the one I'm personally using right now, the monolithic suppressor, the Nexus barrel, the Merc foregrip, the 50 round mags, as well as that XRK Void 2 rear grip. So that pretty much covers it for the class setups and the weapons. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts down in the comments section below. Do you prefer the M4 or the Grau, or do you think they're kind of tied? If you did enjoy the video in any way, let me know by hitting that like button. And if you're brand new to the channel, or you're part of that 77.9% that keeps on watching my videos, makes it to the end, but forgets to subscribe, definitely remember to hit that red subscribe button with notifications on. And for anyone looking for more ways to stay connected, the links to all my socials are down in the description below, as well as the links to my partners over at Gfuel Energy, Respawn Gaming, and Kontrol Freeks, where using code JGOD will give you a discount at checkout. Appreciate all the support on the channel. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.